Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Heads of State and Government, members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is with humility and gratitude that we stand here together to receive this award on behalf of the European Union. At a time of uncertainty, this day reminds people across Europe and the world of the Union's fundamental purpose to further the fraternity between European nations, now and in the future. It is our work today. It has been the work of generations before us, and it will be the work of generations after us. Here in Oslo, I want to pay homage to all the Europeans who dreamt of a continent at peace with itself, and to all those who day by day make this dream a reality. This award belongs to them. War is as old as Europe. Our continent bears the scars of spears and swords, of cannons and guns, of trenches and tanks and more. The tragedy of it all resonates in the words of Herodotus 25 centuries ago. In peace, sons bury their fathers. In war, fathers bury their sons. Yet after two terrible wars engulfed the continent and the world with it, finally, lasting peace came to Europe. In those grey days, its cities were in ruins, the hearts of many still simmering with mourning and resentment. How difficult it then seemed, as Winston Churchill said, to regain the simple joys and hopes that make life worth living. As a child born in Belgium, just after the war, I heard the stories firsthand. My grandmother spoke about the Great War. And in 1940, my father, then 17, had to dig his own grave. He got away, otherwise I would not be here today. Ladies and gentlemen, what a bold bet it was for Europe's founders to say yes, yes we can. Yes, we can break this endless cycle of violence. We can stop the logic of vengeance. We can build a brighter future together. What power of imagination. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, of course, peace might have come to Europe without the Union. Maybe. We will never know. But it would never have been of the same quality. A lasting peace, not a frosty ceasefire. And to me, what makes it so special is reconciliation. In politics, as in life, reconciliation is the most difficult thing. It goes beyond forgiving and forgetting, or simply turning the page. To think of what France and Germany had gone through and then take this step, signing a treaty of friendship. Each time I hear these words, Freundschaft, amitié, I am moved. They are private words, not for treaties between nations, but the will not to let this history repeat itself, to do something radically new, and that was so strong that new words had to be found. For people Europe was a promise. Europe equaled hope. When Konrad Adenauer came to Paris to conclude the Coal and Steel Treaty in 1951, one evening he found a gift waiting at his hotel. It was a war medal, une croix de guerre, that had belonged to a French soldier. And his daughter, a young student, had left it with a little note for the Chancellor as a gesture of reconciliation and of hope. I can see many other stirring images before me. Leaders of the 6 states assembled to open a new future in Rome, Città Eterna. Willy Brandt kneeling down in Warsaw. The dockers of Gdansk at the gates of their shipyard. Mitterrand and Kohl, hand in hand. 2 million people linking Tallinn to Riga to Vilnius in a human chain in 1989. And these moments healed Europe. But symbolic gestures alone cannot cement peace. This is where the European Union's secret weapon comes into play. An unrivaled way of binding our interests so tightly that war becomes materially impossible. Through constant negotiations on ever more topics between ever more countries. And it's the golden rule of Jean Monnet. Mieux faut se disputer autour d'une table que sur un champ de bataille. Better fight around the table than on a battlefield. If you had to explain it to Alfred Nobel, I would say not just a peace congress, a perpetual peace congress. Admittedly, some aspects can be puzzling, and not only to outsiders. Ministers from landlocked countries passionately discussing fish quota. Euro parliamentarians from Scandinavia debating the price of olive oil. The Union has perfected the art of compromise. No drama. No drama of victory or defeat, but ensuring all countries emerge victorious from talks. And for this, boring politics is only a small price to pay. Ladies and gentlemen, it worked. Peace is now self-evident. War has become inconceivable. Yet inconceivable does not mean impossible. And that is why we are gathered here today. Europe must keep its promise of peace. I believe this is still our Union's ultimate purpose. But Europe can no longer rely on this promise alone to inspire citizens. In a way, it's a good thing. War memories are fading, even if not yet everywhere. Soviet rule over Eastern Europe ended just 2 decades ago, and horrendous massacres took place in the Balkans shortly after. The children born at the time of Srebrenica will only turn 18 next year, but they already have little brothers and sisters born after that war, the first real post-war generation of Europe, and this must remain so. Presidents, Prime Ministers, Excellencies. So, where there was war, there is no peace. But another historic task now lies ahead of us, keeping peace where there is peace. After all, history is not a novel, a book we can close after a happy ending. We remain fully responsible for what is yet to come. Ladies and gentlemen, this couldn't be more clear than it is today when we are hit by the worst economic crisis in 2 generations, causing great hardship among our people and putting the political bonds of our union to the test. Parents struggling to make ends meet, workers recently laid off, students who fear that however hard they try, they won't get their first job. When they think about Europe, peace is not the first thing that comes to mind. When prosperity and employment, the bedrock of our societies, appear threatened, it is natural to see a hardening of hearts, the narrowing of interest, even the return of long-forgotten fault lines and stereotypes. For some, not only joint decisions, but the very fact of deciding jointly may come into doubt. And while we must keep a sense of proportion, even such tensions don't take us back to the darkness of the past. The test Europe is currently facing is real. If I can borrow the words of Abraham Lincoln at the time of another continental test, what's being assessed today is whether that union or any union so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. Ladies and gentlemen, we answer with our deeds, confident we will succeed. We are working very hard to overcome the difficulties, to restore growth and jobs. There is, of course, sheer necessity, but there is more that guides us. The will to remain masters of our own destiny, a sense of togetherness, and in a way speaking to us from the centuries, the idea of Europa itself. The presence of so many European leaders here today underlines our common conviction that we will come out of this together, together and stronger. Strong enough in the world to defend our interests and promote our values. We all work to leave a better Europe for the children of today and those of tomorrow, so that later others might turn and judge that generation, ours, preserved the promise of Europe. And today youth is already living in a new world. For them, Europe is a daily reality, not a constraint of being in the same boat. No, the richness of being able to freely share and exchange, to share a continent, experiences, a future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our continent, risen from the ashes after 1945 and united in 1989, has a great capacity to reinvent itself. It will also be for the next generation to take this common adventure further. I hope they will seize this responsibility with pride, and that they will be able to say, as we hear today, Ich bin ein Europäer. Je suis fier d'être européen. I'm proud to be European.